Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile video, and in this one, I wanted to talk a little bit about the current state of minion build diversity and the current state of poison minion meta, mostly actually. Before diving into this video, I do want to point out that this is more of a discussion video that I would like to see some perspectives and hear some opinions from other people than, the close circle that I play with when it comes to the topic that I'm going to talk about in this video. Outside of that, I do want to point out that on Friday, League launch, I will be hosting a giveaway for a $90 supporter pack as soon as I drop my first unique item in Crucible League. So basically on Twitch, you can see the link in the descriptions below. I'll be doing a giveaway to anyone in the chat at the time when I drop my first unique item in the League launch. So make sure you're there. I'll see you guys in the Twitch chat. I feel like the mastery change that we were hoping for, that we're gonna get for minions, didn't come for 3.21, but is expected for 3.22. Now, don't get me wrong with this video. It is going to be a little bit of a criticism to GGG when it comes to minions in general. However, I do want to point out that I'm very happy the fact that we've been playing a lot of Spectre builds, which moved over to Mage Skeletons, which moved over to Poison SRS minion meta, which is following into 3.21 with a Poison minion meta. Now, thanks to some really cool things such as Vol Dominating Blow, Vol Animating Weapon, and Vol Absolution, we're going to have some really cool builds to play. The problem I see with these things is that maybe Dominating Blow has some really cool things up their sleeve, but outside of that, I genuinely feel like there's very little diversity when it comes to the high-end meta of minion builds. Now, a lot of other builds have this issue as well, but for the sake of this video and the content I create, I'm going to focus on minions in this one. Now, the problem I have with the current state is that the diversity of the way these builds are designed are very, very limited. Some builds, they go out of their way and go out of this template, but for the most part, if you exclude some niche approaches such as the Marauder area for some builds, and also going even down so far to play Poison SRS as a champion even, is pretty cool to see. But for the most part, the generic minion meta tree is very, very, very similar to one another, and it's getting very boring. There's very few options for minion builds to diversify and have nodes elsewhere in the tree or design the build in different ways, which creates a rather stale situation because we're always going to compare everything we do towards a poison approach. And the main approaches that we have for minions is basically an elemental conversion, which is mostly cold unless you go Doriani's prototype for lightning. You can compare that to a brutality approach, and you compare that to the poison approach. That's basically the main things you look at. There are a few other things you can do, such as going crit and whatnot. And this all depends on what budget you're playing, obviously, because the higher budget versions with enough currency, you can make a lot of cool things. But for the most part, in the majority of the player base, most people are playing lower budget approaches, league starting friendly styles, things you can get going in the first week of a league, depending on the amount of hours you play. So I'm going to show you the Poison SRS skill tree here in this PUB. And in here, you can see that the tree is basically always going in as a temporarily summoned minions to pick up Enduring Bond. We also are using utility minions that we would like to keep alive, so we're going for Sacrifice as well as Spiritual Command. We're also going for the left-hand node for Redemption, which in many cases, most minion builds would pick up Righteous Army as well. If you're doing a hit-based minion build, you will be picking up Grave Pact. Now we already have a bunch of large clusters area. We have a large area of nodes here. We have these nodes in the section here, and we have Enduring Bond for temp minions, and we have the Grave Pact in the bottom side here. Outside of that, there's very little variations. You choose between your defensive styles, if you go in Spell Suppression, if you go in Life-based, if you go in CI, if you go in Hybrid, and those things will have to be covered with the remaining points of the tree. So just looking at the amount of points you need to get to those specific nodes, so you're going to pick up the R nodes doing this as well, it's pretty crazy to see. Because if you do it this way, you can see that 54 points are pretty much exclusively spent on a little bit of HP, actually 52, a little bit of HP, these are nodes, and these very, very mandatory, almost mandatory for most minion builds. And most builds even go Righteous Army. That's 55 points of the tree that you're gated. You're completely locked into this, unless you're going something like CI, which in this case would move these travel points elsewhere, and it would still be the same amount of points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You save 1 or 2 points for doing that, or you can cut these points out. So about 50-55 points of the tree is gated into these nodes. And I know that you can do other builds as well, but they're not that many. The vast majority of minion builds, they look like this. And it's getting really, really, really stale, in my opinion. Like, we've had this for so long, And I know we're getting mastery changes most likely for 3.22. I'm just not confident that the mastery changes are going to allow us to get out of this sequence. We're oiling death attunements. Some builds would go up for these nodes as well, but these would remain. The only thing in this section here that is not rather optional would be these nodes, and that has more to do with the build design. If you're going with utility minions that you would like to keep alive, these nodes are preferable. If you go in temporarily summon minion nodes or minion builds, the Enduring Bond is basically a must. If you're going with caster builds, well, then you can skip the Grave Pact, the accuracy you're getting from here. If you're playing a higher budget build, these nodes are usually the first to go. But outside of that, if you're keeping things down to a reasonable playable budget, everything looks the same. Now, I feel like the diversity of how builds are designed is, in many cases, better for other types of builds. But maybe I'm just, feeling a little bit annoyed with it because of how many different mini builds there are that is functional, and that's a good thing. But this feels really awkward because the main problem with this is that once you compare builds such as the main parts that you do when you're comparing mini builds, which is basically elemental conversion, either lightning with the Doriani's prototype or cold, which is more attractive for most people, you compare those approaches to brutality pure physical with or without impale, and then you compare that to the poison. Those are the four main parts that you compare any type of mini build that you would ever create. And this is a generic tree for a poison SRS made by Balor Mage, which we have a guide for linked in the descriptions below, of course. The problem with this build and the way this is done is that all the damage with the poison meta is right now coming exclusively from the gear. SRS in this case has 0 damage that this build is utilizing that can poison. So every single point of damage that is being poisoning from these minions is coming from gear. That's it. It's Jewels, it's the Envy Aura from United Dream, a Covenant if you're going for that approach. All of the damage comes from that is poisoning. And this tree can then be applied, and this approach with a gear can be applied on any minion build in the entire game. Now SRS is the best at it, but you can even put something like Mage Skeletons with this specific tree and have the gear giving them the poison damage, and they will not do that much less damage than SRS. It's absolutely crazy that this is the current state that we're playing minions in. So I'm not sure how you guys feel, but my personal opinion on this is really, really specific. And that is that I would love to see the poison minion meta getting changed. And I would love to see more diversity with the builds when it comes to minions. Because we've had some times where we had cold conversion, we had cold minions without converting, we had brutality impale strategies, and they were all really cool ways to play in the build, and the difference between them weren't that big. But the current state of the game is poison. It's just poison. And if you don't do poison, you have to pour a lot of currency into the build to make it work. And it's just really sad to see. I know how you guys feel, but I can't come up with any sort of mastery changes that would make a significant impact enough to change this. Obviously, there's other problems such as the specters being dragged through the mud for years upon years now, to the point where we can't even make them compete with anything but conversion trap. But that's a different story for another video that I'm going to bitch and moan about later on. Again, I do want to stress that I am happy with the state of minions when it comes to the meta, that they are there's quite a few mini builds you can play, even if they're not the best. And I also want to stress that I do enjoy the fact that minions are going to be one of the most played builds in 3.21 again, as they have been for many leagues now. But do let me know in the comments below, because I want to start a little bit of a discussion with this video and see if there's anyone in the comments or in the chat in my stream, if you guys have any sort of ideas that would be able to present us with an opportunity that a mastery change, perhaps, because we know we're getting that, would change this state of the game. Because there's been so many nerfs to the non-poison versions that it feels kind of a lost hope or a pipe dream to see better build diversity with the current state of minions, unless they make some big reworks. Maybe I'm a little bit pessimistic in this, but I would love to have this discussion with you guys. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the current state of meta when it comes to minions, and how you feel about it, and if there's any options or any solutions or suggestions you might have that you think would solve this current problem that I believe we have in the game for Path of Exile. That's all I have for you today. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment down below so I can check out what you guys' opinions are on this, and subscribe for more content. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe.